The following is a presentation of National Speed Sport News.
Good evening and welcome to Speed Sport Magazine. I'm your host, Ralph Sheheen. Tonight we're going to depart from our normal routine as we try to give some perspective to the events that transpired in sprint car racing since the last time we were with you. I'm talking about the accident involving Tony Stewart and Kevin Ward Jr. at Canandaigua Motorsports Park on August 9th. Since that night, this story has been sensationalized by the general news media, and with a few exceptions, much misinformation has been put forth by this reporting. So tonight, we've invited three sprint car experts to join us in a discussion of what we know and to offer perspective on the facts surrounding the events that unfolded on August 9th. I'm joined by former World of Outlaw race winner Erin Evernham, two-time World of Outlaw champion Jason Meyers, and Sprint Car Hall of Famer Brad Doty. Now, before we begin, I do want to state we are not here to defend or condemn the actions of either Tony Stewart or Kevin Ward Jr. Instead, we are here to examine the facts as we know them and to try to add perspective to the events of Saturday night, August 9th. Jason, let me begin with you. What are the protocols when a yellow comes out? What are you as a driver supposed to do, and what are you thinking about and looking at in the car?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot when a yellow comes out. You know, in our racing, that's the only chance you get to maybe analyze things that are going on in the race car and things of that nature. So the first thing really is you got to realize that there is a yellow flag out. Usually that's either done by the flagman or by lights on the racetrack. That can be a couple of lights, can be, some tracks have more lights, some have less, sometimes they're hard to see, sometimes they're not. So you know, typically someone will see them, the cars will start to slow down. So at that point, it's safely slow down. And then you instantly begin kind of analyzing where you're at. Where's the wing position in the car? We lean the cars down on the yellows to save fuel. One hand goes to the fuel valve, and most drivers, I know myself, I leave it there so I don't forget to turn the fuel back on. So as soon as the yellow comes out, you're leaning it down, you're checking wing position, you might glance at your gauges. You begin to kind of look around the racetrack a little bit to analyze the grooves that you weren't running. So it's really a very, very busy time for a driver. And it's, you know, we don't have radio communication. You don't have a crew talking to you. It's, the driver is the mechanic necessarily for those 30 laps. So it's a very busy time in the cockpit. Not to mention, you know, watching for the accident that's on the racetrack, trying to figure out where it's at, safety vehicles that are coming onto the track for whatever incident may be, whether it's a tow truck or typically you wouldn't have an ambulance unless it's a red flag, but there can be a lot going on a yellow flag.
And Erin, these are things that are taking place in seconds, not necessarily minutes.
Absolutely. In addition to what Jason said too, it's also a time for a driver to have a mental break. You're thinking about the first part of the race, what you did well, what you can work on, what's going to happen on the restart. You're worried about catching up to the field too, get back in line.
Brad, it's not unusual to have seen drivers come out onto the racetrack to show their displeasure with another driver. We've seen it in literally every form of racing, whether it's two wheels or four. What was different about this particular situation?
Well, I guess watching the video, and it's inconclusive, but from what I saw, Tony Stewart and the Ward car did not make contact in turn two. So when the caution came out, it's possible that Stewart didn't even know why the caution came out. And as a driver, as Jason said, the caution comes out, you start looking around, you might be looking at your wing position and all these things going on. So when Tony came around to the front straightaway, you know, you don't expect a driver being on the racetrack. And again, you know, it's just so many other things going on. That's the furthest thing from your point. So if he'd have made contact or felt that, you know, as a driver, when you bump somebody or do a slide job that goes wrong, as we say, you know it, and you know that guy may be upset with you. But the question is, was the contact there, and did he even know why the caution came out?
And again, that's hard to tell since we're looking at just basically a cell phone video on a very dark night at a dark racetrack. Radios. We know that radios are used in other forms of motorsport. What is the story with radios in sprint car racing today? What are you hearing? What are you not hearing? And would radios work?
Well, we tried them several years ago, and they didn't work for multiple reasons. One, they were very difficult. The magnetos on the cars interfered with them. The fact of the elements that were in, we had lots of problems with them. There were some questions about our drivers blocking. You know, this is not a 500-mile race. This is not a strategy race. This is a 30-lap or to 40-lap winner-take-all sprint race. And so there's not a lot of I won't say there's not strategy, because there is with tire wear and things of that nature, but the radios just weren't really a good fit. Plus, it was another cost thing for a sport that is already very expensive and very hard to make ends meet. So it was something they decided to take away. So what we do have is we have a one-way, what they call a receiver, where just the officials have the ability to, and not all the officials, the scorekeeper typically, and maybe one director has the ability to talk to us in the cockpit. And that was mainly done to help with lineups, make the show go quicker, a better race for the fans, and a somewhat of an effort to keep officials off of the racetrack with the lineup boards and things like that, to kind of make some of the safety for the officials safer, because that's been a problem in the past with officials being on the racetrack, and there's been multiple incidents with officials being hurt by cars.
So Erin, what are you hearing? What are you told? Is there any way currently that you could be made aware of something taking place on the track that you need to be aware of?
Well, mainly, like Jason said, they use it to give you a restart lineup. So they're not out there pointing at cars and holding up chalkboards like they used to. And sometimes, depending on what race series you're running with, they'll tell you a caution's out, and they might tell you what corner it's in, but that's about the most information you're going to get.
Brad, what are you told in the driver's meeting about exiting the car?
Well, again, it's normally under a red flag. You know, the driver may get out and assess the damage to know whether he should go to the work area, whether they can fix the race car or not. But, you know, under caution, generally they drag the car back, the driver stays in the car, and you work on the race car. But I want to go back to the radio. The reason spotters and radios really don't work in sprint car racing, most sprint car tracks are 15 seconds or less a lap. There are some tracks running sub 10-second lap. A spotter can't see something, key the mic, and tell the driver what's going on and have the driver react. As Jason said earlier, it's up to the driver in that cockpit. You're kind of on your own to keep your eyes open and your ears open to what's going on around you. So that's the main reason a two-way radio doesn't work.
Jason, you mentioned incidents with officials too. Have any of you ever had any close calls on the racetrack similar?
You know, I've been, you kind of block that stuff out of your mind, but yeah, I can recall a couple of times where you know, you're under caution, and whether you're just starting to slow down, and you may get someone to run out on the racetrack to pick up a piece of debris or something. And you know, those places, even when we're under caution, when we're at idle, we're still going 25 to 30 miles an hour. And when you're slowing down for caution, you're still rolling anywhere from 40 to 60 miles an hour. So when somebody darts out in front of you to grab, you know, a piece of tire off the racetrack or some debris or something, you might be looking at something in the race car and not really looking. And I've had that a couple of times where someone runs out to get some debris, and I mean, it scares you to death, you know. I mean, you kind of narrowly miss them, and then you lose sight of them as they run from one side to the other with the wings. You may see them for a second, then they disappear. You don't know how far did they go, what did they do, and it can be nerve-wracking.
Okay. Well, stay with us. We're going to be right back for more Speed Sport Magazine, and we're going to put our experts around the car and Jason in it to give you an idea of what it's like behind the wheel of a winged sprint car. We'll be right back. Since 1934, National Speed Sport News has been America's motorsports authority. Every month, Speed Sport Magazine comes alive with stunning photography, insightful commentary, and in-depth features. You will get the full story with Speed Sport Magazine. To start your home delivery of America's motorsports authority, log on to nationalspeedsportnews.com and hit the big yellow subscribe button. Be the fan in the know. Just go to nationalspeedsportnews.com and click subscribe.